Let me pop in and say good morning to the Grenada, the mainland, our sister isles of Carriacou and PT Martinique. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today, Friday, is the 10th day. Time is on the move, right? Just like we started February just like a couple hours ago. Someone was telling me that this morning. Anyway, welcome to The Point. Let me say good morning to our viewers this morning who are viewing via GBN TV. Welcome, 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 welcome. Hope all is well with you. Also, listeners and viewers via our social media platform, whether it's the Facebook page, welcome and good morning. Those of you via our YouTube channels, whether it's the YouTube, the production, that's GBN production, or you probably the GBN, of course, YouTube channel, whichever one you view this morning. Good morning to you, and welcome, 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 welcome. It's a beautiful day in the Spice Isle for me. I will always say that, as always. On the point this morning, we do have a guest with us this morning. We do have the president of the GUT, as Mr. Jude Bartholomew. He's with us this morning, and we have a chit chat for the next hour. So, of course, your phone calls will also be welcome. Those of you viewers and listeners, of course, I will alert you the time that you could chime in with us. Any question or two you may like to ask, of course, Mr. Bartholomew. I'm sure that he will be glad to answer. All right, so let's say good morning to Mr. Bartholomew. Mr. Bartholomew, good morning and welcome. Is it the first time we're having you for 2023, I will assume? For some reason, I'm not getting an audio from you, sir. I'm not sure if it's on my end or if it's your end. I'm not getting...
I think it's on my end, so you're getting it now?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear. All right, thank you. Yes, welcome once again.
Happy New Year to you and to the Grenadian citizenry, and right down to the diaspora throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. I want to take the opportunity to wish our listeners Happy New Year on behalf of God's blessing on behalf of the Grenada Union of Teachers. And I take the opportunity also to invoke God's blessings and God's Holy Spirit upon this program this morning. Ask God for wisdom. I also take the opportunity on behalf of the Grenada Union of Teachers to wish our nation and the diaspora happy 49th anniversary independence, and I pray that God will bless our nation, our government, our people, and our institution.
Thank you so much there for that blessing. Of course, so let's get into the meat of the conversation this morning. We do have a lot to talk about this morning. You haven't been here for a while, so I show you a bit. There's been stacks of information that you would like to share with the nation, information that will be definitely beneficial to a viewing and listening public out there. Now, let's talk about back to school. Tell us about what's happening in the arena of there in terms of schools, in terms of back to school has started, and give us some information, the problems that the schools are facing and so forth that you would like to discuss. Tell us about that.
Yes, before I take the opportunity for talking about back to school and sports and all the different things that we have for the agenda, because now is the appropriate time. We're celebrating the 49th anniversary of our independence, Grenada. And I think one of the things, although we're going forward in transformation and everything, we have to transform our mind. And I think one of the problems that we are having, even as unionists, trade unionists, politicians, government, or citizens, the dilemma how we tread between governments, between our citizenry, and I would state my observation and premise before I go forward.
Yeah.
It is sometimes difficult how you tread with our Grenadian citizenry. And I observe that because when I would go to say on the record that when the NNP administration was in power, when union or trade unionists take a decision and they express themselves through protest action, demonstration and everything, you have the supporters of the NNP administration, they weren't happy at all, so you have a problem there. At that moment, the NDC supporters, they were happy, they were very happy. When the previous administration were in power and you speak out and you take a particular action. What you observe at this time now, when the new administration or the NDC administration is in power, then the previous administration, their supporters who are unhappy when you take a certain action, now at that particular time, they would want and they call for you as a trade union leader and other persons to take certain actions and to speak out. When you speak out now at the same time, the supporters of the new administration, they are unhappy. And that's the sort of dilemma that we are in, and we have to free ourselves of this sort of mental slavery, or in our 49 coming to our 50th independence. As trade unionists, as the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers, we speak independently regardless of political parties and government in power. And I just want to make that clear. So I'll move back now to
But
the European.
just to say, ask you something in between the statements that you made. I mean, situation like that is more or less expected from supporters of political organization, would you say?
Yes, it is expected, but at the same time, our persons, our society, we have to be reasonable in the sense and probably look higher than that, and what are the reasons. Because really and truly, as trade unionists, as the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers and the Grenada Union of Teachers, we speak out for our members. We fight for our members, and that is expected regardless of, I think, consistency must be the game. So we speak out and we fight for the benefits of our members. In order that we hate politicians or whoever in party, whether it's NNP or NDC or any other political parties or governments or administration. Our sole responsibility and my sole responsibility, regardless of who is in power, whether government or opposition, is to fight for the benefits of our members, and that we shall do.
All right. Point taken, sir. Point taken. So let's get into meat of our conversation this morning. We're talking back to school. From the duty perspective, what are some of the problem faces in school? You know, there's been a lot of talk lately about leading to violence, you know, parents and other citizens, you know, entering school premises, you know, fighting with teachers and stuff like that. What does the duty take on those instances, and what are some of the recommendations that you are putting forward, maybe to the schools, the principals, etc.? What's your take on that?
So I think we're looking forward for a smooth transition with the new year, 2023. The blessings upon our students, upon our teachers, principals, the Ministry of Education for a smooth running of the education system. But what we are seeing in the midst of that, we are seeing some turbulent waters. Also, the anticipation of students, of the citizenry, teachers, principals, or general public who really through COVID-19 and the work to rule never had the opportunity for sports or primary school sports, and branch sports and intercal games. So on that note, persons and students, everybody, the general public, are looking forward in anticipation for a successful term, and that's really the sports season. But in the midst of that, we see some turbulent waters. We see a situation and a trend in Grenada in schools. We notice some schools in St. George's, not only in St. George's, throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. And that trend where we see violence in school, we see confrontation. Now there are going to always be misunderstanding and problems in school, and that is expected. But it's how we deal and how we handle the situation. From the Grenada Union of Teachers perspective, from a school principal, teachers, the Ministry of Education, the government of Grenada, there are protocols and things in place to deal with grievances and matters where parents or their students or even teachers might be displeased. And so there are protocols in place. And what we're saying is that irrespective of any situation, we're not saying that every situation the teacher would be right. We are human beings. We're not saying every time the students will be right or the students will be wrong. That is not what we're saying, but the approach and how we solve the problems and how we deal with it and how we handle it. But what we say, and I think all society should take a stand on that, and government should be looking and taking note that we should not condone, like in schools, the violence, whether with students fighting with students, whether students fighting with teachers, or parents coming in, or other bigger siblings coming with parents and joining a fight to really and truly fight with teachers. And that is creating a serious problem. You have a situation here where teachers are afraid. Probably students are afraid to go to school. In certain schools, they're complaining because when the teachers are teaching, they have to be looking behind their back in expectation with the trauma that they went through. And students also are imagining and thinking that somebody might be coming in the school to attack the children, to attack the students, and those things, and that is wrong. So that violence in school, those things have to stop. And we're calling on the administration, we're calling on whoever, the Ministry of Education, and those persons, whoever in charge, and the general citizenry of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, when those things happen, to really not to laugh at it or to really put fuel to the fire, but to try to tamper it down. Because when those things happen, it happens in one school and then copycats in all different schools. You see that trend is picking up now. And I could tell you that Teachers are afraid, students are afraid, principals, and everybody, they are afraid.
Mr. Buffett, let me just chiming on you here for a minute, actually. I mean, folks would say incidents of that nature may be nothing new to what we're seeing. I mean, this has happened before. Why haven't this been, a serious curve been put into that we don't ever see this nature happening? Over the years, we have had where your parents or children bullying each other happening in schools, and sometimes we always see just a continuation of it. It may come in the news or it don't come in the news, and it just fades away, and then until it reoccurs again, and then it's been speaken about. Why have there never been a serious, approach to covering, maybe from the union perspective or even government perspective on it?
Well, probably the will or the political will or the will of our people to really sit down and to really address certain situations. That certain situations become chronic, and sometimes we just pass on it and we don't really handle it properly. But one could see that the situation is becoming worse. And we have to sit down, probably as trade unionists, we've been trying to, schools have been trying to call for engagement and dialogue with parents. And there's a protocol in place. That's what we're saying. When parents come in, it's supposed to come in and handle with the principal, members of staff, and first level of contact to really solve the situation and calm it down and try to remedy. But what you happen is that you see parents, and not all parents, we just want to say there are some parents, even if there are misunderstanding or some sort of grievance or something happening in school, they will come in a nice, they may not be happy, but they come in a nice, amicable way to try to see how they can resolve the problem and the situations. But there are some situations where parents come in, and from the time they reach in other persons, it's really that violent act and those situations. So at times you cannot get anything done. But what I could safely say is that some of these schools right now are frustrated because they've been trying to, in the St. George's area, they have been trying to, yes, at the first time when the situation happened, we are aware of a situation that occurred in a few schools in J.W. Fletcher, for example, St. Joseph Convent and other places. We don't want to call the names of persons involved, but these teachers and principals are complaining that although the Ministry of Education came in the school more or less at lower level, and they have not seen the intervention of persons from the Ministry of Education at the highest level, and even probably other bodies to really deal with the situation. And so there is a situation even at J.W. Fletcher right now where principals and teachers and other persons are not really happy because the situation have not resolved. They've been trying to see the board, the church board, the Ministry of Education, and other parties, even the union, have been calling for meetings and engagement. And I think there is some displeasure there. So what we want to say, there are some weaknesses in the system. We observe also that students know they are aware of their rights. They are aware of their rights, and that could be another issue here. Mm-hmm. Everybody have rights, including teachers have rights, we have students have rights, parents have rights, but rights must come with responsibilities. And what we observe even in Grenada here, I mean, children are quoting their rights and such, and everybody else quotes students' rights. So when they quote their rights and such, it becomes even more challenging to deal with certain situations in an amicable manner. We observe another situation where some principals would say, and even teachers, the Ministry of Education, they are saying there is a big problem there. And I will tell you why. Some principals are saying when an incident happens in a school and they go down to the Ministry of Education, that there are some parents who could just bypass the school and write a report to about the principal or the teachers directly to the Chief Education Officer or the Ministry of Education. And some principals would have complained that when they go down to the Ministry of Education, that before the proper diligence and investigation occurs, that most times or some of the times in the Ministry of Education, they would ask the principal to apologize to the parents, or apologize probably to the students without getting the proper information from the principals and from teachers and other persons. So what they are saying those things, even from the Ministry of Education and other places, we're not saying that there are instances when teachers may not be wrong or whatever, But when you just come out and you ask a principal just to apologize like that, or a teacher to apologize like that, it means that it reinforces those other things from the students, from the parents, and then the teachers and principals have no say. And these are some weaknesses in the system that have been taking place for a long time. So right about now, it seems that principals and teachers, they feel that they are overwhelmed and they have no really say. And that could go further in creating problems, and I think we really have to cope that. And I'll go a little further to say that the union has a part to play, principals have a part to play, teachers have a part to play, government and other institutions have a part to play to really sort of curb that, because I will tell you one thing before we go ahead with this problem. Older teachers in the system who really and truly getting ready to retire, they probably were thinking about spending a little longer time in school and in the education system, which the government itself did say to teachers and public officers, we don't want you to really go and retire now for pensionable purposes, because they're going to put a real pressure on the economic system, which is true. But teachers are contemplating and they're saying, if that's the system in the school or the situation where it is becoming violent, they're frightened and they're afraid, they have no say and they don't have no voice. A lot of the teachers and teachers who have made the 26 and 2 years and 30 years in the system, a lot of them are saying that they're getting ready to call it quit because they're frustrated. Now, if this matter is not resolved, what is going to happen? You're going to have a lot of teachers just exiting the system, and that is going to create a gap. And it's going to create more pressure on the economic situation in Grenada for the government to really deal with.
All right.
So we're calling everybody, let's good sense prevail, and let's try to see if we could curb that situation. There was a situation in Tamsisi even last week. Violence, it just seems to be occurring here, there, and everywhere.
But may I chime in on you once again, Mr. Bartholomew, and ask you this? Is there any facility or is there any grouping within the system that could help to facilitate in terms of helping the parents and students, even teachers, the whole school and fraternity in terms of dealing with those particular situations? Is there any institution available for that?
Well, not that I know of. Or what I know, or we know there are protocols in place to deal with the situation, but probably with the protocols that are in place is not handled properly from every angle and every end. And I think that is what needs to be resolved, and there needs to be some consistency there. But I would also in agreement with you that the government, Ministry of Education, and probably as a society as a whole, we need to establish probably some situation or some mechanisms in place to adequately deal with all the circumstances. You know, the students just come out from COVID-19 and all those other things, emotional, psychological pressures, teachers come out from COVID-19 situation, and all those things and things are blaring out. We need to look at the psychological, emotional stress and all those things on students and parents and teachers and take note of these things and try to see the proper counseling and address other matters. All so right. I think there are a number of different things that probably playing out itself here, but nevertheless, I think what we're really saying is that whatever the problems and the issues, there would always be problems in schools and institutions. How we deal with it, how we handle it, how we solve it, how we come together to resolve the situation for the benefit of all. Because if that doesn't happen, there are a lot of children who are well behaved in school, a lot of parents who they take care of their children and they would never like to see their children assaulting or disrespecting teachers, just as how they would never like to see teachers probably assaulting and disrespecting their students or their children. And so if that doesn't happen, there will be chaos in the system, and it would not be beneficial for the students and beneficial for the parents to have a harmonious and a reliable education system. So we better take note of the situation and see what we can come with, go back on the drawing board to see how we can resolve conflicts and all those things, whether from the home, whether from school, whether from parents, the society as a whole.
All right, Mr. Bartholomew, we drew for a first break. Let's take it. We come back and chit-chat some more. It's To The Point for today, Friday. We're coming right back.
You mentioned the wing high, then you have things like man, you must come back, you know. We have the low pole there.
It is kind of like the same man, and it's just different name for the same kind of thing.
And last but not least, I just want to say to all the men who saw me, called me, and asked for a piece of cake, I'm baking this weekend.
Join us Fridays at 8 on GBN Television, K105 FM, GBN's Facebook page, and YouTube channel for We Culture.
I want you folks to play these 3 games from the NLA. Daily pick 3 cash flow and play with. You will be supporting sports and culture, nation building and our future. So go out and play, folks, make it a must. You will see what the National Lottery is doing for us. When you play pick 3 cash flow and play with, the NLA will will support you all the way.
Starting September 30th, Monday to Friday, these 3 games will be drawn mid-morning, 9:45 a.m., midday, 12:45 p.m., and evenings, 7:45 p.m. The National Lotteries, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Sandy Manity.
Welcome back to our listeners and viewers this morning to The Point for today, Friday, our final, of course, program for this week. And with me this morning, we have Mr. Jude Bartholomew, the president of the GUT, is with me this morning. Let's go over and say good morning to you once again, sir, and welcome back. You know, in previous conversation that we were having, we spent a lot of time speaking about, some of the problem facing schools when it comes to violence. Now, a question I would like to ask you on this is, again, in terms of school security, do schools need more adequate security? I mean, should there be, all around the world they talk, some countries are saying maybe police should be there in schools and so forth. We know there are a lot of there are schools who employ private security firms, to be part of the security structure of the school. What is the union's take on that in terms of security at schools?
We've been calling, and is a very interesting question that you're asking there. And in light of what is happening in schools, we have been advocating with the Ministry of Education a very long time now for better school security. You need to secure your school. You need, for example, the school environment, the physical buildings, vandalism. You spend a lot of money to build a school, and then it is vandalized. You're looking at the proper fencing of schools. And a lot of the times it is lacking. You look at the fencing, the quality, the height of the fencing is very low. The walls that is built sometimes around school, the gates, or the gates. You see what is happening now, for example, in J.W. Fletcher, you had persons coming in and jumping over the fence, jumping over the walls. The gate was very low and those things. And these are some of the issues, safety in the school. You're talking about classroom now with new building construction where you have just one door, you need 2 doors, you need escape routes and a number of different things. But we definitely we've gone past the days of one little security guard in a school. If something happened, that person cannot do anything. What about even even with a security officer? Who do they call in emergency situations? Do they have the mechanism, the CB radio, the phone, so they could call the police or they could call for help and those things like that? So I think there should be better planning with what is taking place on all schools. So we're calling on the Ministry of Education and the government of Grenada for school security and such, fencing the walls, the gates, and cameras. You have cameras in school, and a lot of cameras have been installed, and sometimes persons just laugh because what we're hearing sometimes, it may not all be factual, but some of the cameras, they're but they're not working. Yeah. They're not working.
So, I understand your concerns about all of these issues, and and it is issues that should be taken to heart in terms of special security. I think no parent wants to know that their son or daughter is at school and they feel traumatized by individuals who just feel they can walk into schools and do as they please. Now, from the GUT point of view, how you think this could be curved or put an end to it once and for all before we move on to another subject line?
Are you talking about school security?
School security. We still into school security.
Right. So we think it can be covered. Number one, you could put fencing as high as what, or you could put walls and cameras. If people want to do something bad, they will do something bad. So I think we have to, as union, as government, Ministry of Education, society as a whole, is to educate our people. Number one, it is wrong, basically breaking the law to vandalize schools or to trespass in schools. So the laws need to be, persons have to be reminded of the laws, and not just be reminded, but to respect the laws and rules that govern institutions and organizations and school and other education. So that's what you're talking about. In the process of transformation, as the new government said, they must, the mind, all right, our mentality and our approach to things, all right, the respect for each other and everything, that's what had to happen. And unless we do those things to respect each other and to do those things and for good citizenry and order in the state and in the institution, we can build up walls and put all the cameras and all those things. It would never solve anything. So in the process of doing that, and to make sure that you have proper fencing, you have the adequate walls, you have, more than one security guard in a school and those things, you need education. And I think we have to go on an educational campaign, probably better dialogue between, the schools, PTA, principals, school community, and everything like that. So more persons be on board to be our brother's keeper and to try to see how we could cope that those situations. And once we able to do that, probably there is no need for all the walls and the fencing and the cameras and all those things. But I think education, we have to go on an educational drive to touch minds and to change the mindset of our people, of handling situations and grievances and all these things.
Has the Jude ever considered dialogue with the Ministry of Education in terms of helping it to remedy the security system of school? Has any thought ever put into that?
So we are willing to do that at any time.
Have you ever taken the initiative of?
Yes, we have taken the initiative. We have taken the initiative with the Ministry of Education and the government of Grenada. Yes, all the time for better security, for all those things. Unfortunately, the duty can do so much, whether it's physical infrastructure, but we have taken the lead role. The GUT, the Grenada Union of Teachers, have taken the lead role in terms of trying to get government, Ministry of Education, and other institutions, whether privately, because sometimes the teachers raise funds themselves. That's from the Grenada Union of Teachers perspective, where a lot of teachers from their schools have been doing a lot of work, sometimes even fencing. So then putting up security and cameras and all those things. Not all the time it comes from government, it comes from private agencies, it comes from diaspora, it comes from the school, persons in the school who want to lend a helping hand, past students. So the GUT have been doing a lot behind the scene. To try to help that situation. More could be done.
No, we in the term, let's move on to another subject matter now. We in the term where, a lot of sporting activities are up in the air now for, in terms of the various schools. Tell us some about the various sports, the brand sports, the national primary sports and stuff coming up. How is from the duty perspective, how the organization of these events, how is it flowing and so forth? Let us know about that.
Well, I think that's the time when there's lots of excitement, and as we say, the community as a whole, society, we are a sports-loving society, Grenada Carriacou, and Pity Matnik, our students, teachers, parents, principals, everybody, Ministry of Education, whether from the primary, secondary school, that was really missing for a few years after COVID, and then the walk to rule. The walk to rule was one thing that really caused sports and everything like that, so to really and truly was on hold. And we see the wisdom now. And so I'll go back to Jussie, I will answer you. Now we see the wisdom, and you see the reason why the Grenada Union of Teachers, they walked the rule that this administration under the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, as he came in, it was wisdom and the smartness of the government to really and truly pay back the doc salary. And then you see that matter was settled. So, and now we go back to sports and everything like that. So, and the whole nation and society are enjoying that. Our desire, and from the union perspective, is not necessarily the money that was taken from us from the previous administration, It wasn't about that. It was because teachers didn't really want back the money if they didn't get it. It's the principle behind the thing. And even while we got it back and the wisdom for sports and everything to go back to normalcy, we still have persons who might be saying they shouldn't get back the doc salary. Let me just make it clear to the Grenadian citizenry. We fought for the doc salary back, not only for teachers and public officers, That fight was for the general public in the private sector and the public sector, even persons at GBN and in the media. What would have happened? Think about it. If we did not get back the doc salary, any private institution, wherever you work, private or public, would have felt, well, the government led by example. People watch the government, and they would say, if the government gets away with just taking person's salary and docking it, they would have done it to you too, private or publicly. So you have have to really thank God for the Grenada Union of Teachers, in spite of the criticism that we get, to stand firm and steadfast and vigilant in really and truly fighting to see if we could get back the dark solid, because it's a principle behind it. And now we got it back. We give thanks to the NDC administration, and sports is flowing nicely. So we dialoguing the Grenada Union of Teachers for national primary school games and branch sports with the Grenada Cooperative Bank. The Grenada Cooperative Bank, Coop Bank, will be the official sponsor for branch sports, all the branches toward Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. The first time that St. George's will be coming on board, and Coop Bank, they are looking forward to that. Also, the official sponsorship for the 2023 National Primary School Games. And so we were in dialogue and everything like that, just getting ready to sign that contract with the Grenada Cooperative Bank. So we look forward to that. The planning and everything, the execution, the logistics behind the sports, to making sure that from the stadium, from all end, even dialoguing with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Sports, to see what they can do to assist, because sports is not only the responsibility of the teachers and the Grenada Union of Teachers, but the Ministry of Education to come on board and to lend a helping hand for all of us throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. So what we see now is that from schools right down throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique are having the individual sports there. And I could tell you that the fans there, whether Saturday or Sunday or days of the week, that persons are coming out. That was missing for a long time. And I could tell you the camaraderie and everything like that, the celebratory mood and excitement that are taking place amongst students, the community, coming out in large numbers to enjoy themselves and to support the athletes and everything is really interesting and fascinating from individual schools. And so as we come closer to March and the mid-February, we'll see that we'll start to have the branch sports, individual branch sports. I think later on we're going to have an official press conference sometime next week with the Coop Bank and the Grenada Union of Teachers, and you're going to hear more about the plans for sports. But right about now, everything, the logistic and everything is in place, and planning to make sure that the 2023 sports season for the Grenada Union of Teachers, for Coop Bank, and everybody or citizens through the length and breadth of Grenada is a successful one.
All right. Well, I'm certainly happy to know that students will be able to enjoy their sport meet this year, and of course, with no issues that will cause them not to feel happy in terms of having it. Because sometimes it's a great thing to see them perform on the nation's tracks. Now, let's get into the subject of salary negotiation with government in terms for teachers and so forth. Tell us where that lies right now, and how is it moving forward?
I'm happy that you brought up about salary negotiations. Now, there are some information that I would not make public because we're still before the negotiating table. But my concern with salary negotiations, before I really get into the nitty-gritty of the thing, is that the comments that you're hearing on Facebook, the comments you're hearing from some persons who are ignorant of the fact of what is taking place, and you're hearing the comments that the duty president basically is responsible for teachers not getting their salaries, the increase in salaries for 2023 on time in January. And I don't understand where those things are coming from. You know, you respect people's views and opinion, but that is not the fact. In fact, right now, you're seeing something on the paper on the Grenada today, which is really and truly false allegation and maliciously was done. And basically, you would say sometimes your greatest enemies in things is not necessarily the government of Grenada, where I've always felt that the greatest enemy of progress for us as union wasn't necessarily the NNP administration or NDC administration, but sometimes from within your own people, not necessarily rank and file of the teachers, all right, not necessary, but sometimes within, and I will leave that there. But there is something on the paper, even right now, the Grenada today, which is very wrong and malicious and those things, and you wonder sometimes where those things are coming from. So now that I say that, I will go back to say that we just really started salary negotiations. We wrote the previous administration, the NNP administration, just months before the general elections to commence salary negotiations, because it was the principle of of the previous administration, from the IMS perspective, that salary negotiation should be forward-going. And forward-going it means that you finish and you complete salary negotiations before the contractual period finish. And that makes sense because what used to happen before, you had to sell assets, and that's how we lose probably all our assets in Grenada, or most of it, in paying retroactive payments. However, we did not get any response from the previous administration to commence salary negotiations. We know that we had elections, and the new administration, we take them a little time to settle down. We wrote them and we say, we really want salary negotiations to commence. I could remember the last program that I was on GBN, I did talk about the importance of the significance, the urgency of salary negotiations, the commencement. And so the government did respond, and we started salary negotiations. Unfortunately, we did not know that the previous administration, that police and prison officers went ahead and signed the contractual period for 2023 for 4% increase. We never had, and so I'm putting it on the record here, that the Grenada Union of Teachers never had any negotiation and never engaged in negotiations with the previous administration for salary increases for 2024. What happened is that police and prison officers went and do it. And usually what used to happen is that the various unions would negotiate, and then police and prison officers would accept whatever we negotiate for. So we all sort of struck. And what happens is that the new administration with the government negotiating team, really and truly, because police signed and accepted, they probably wanted us to accept the 4% salary increase for 2023. But we said, we're not going to do that. And I would never sign an agreement. That's why I'm saying it doesn't make sense, because some persons would say in the public, and you're hearing it, that this new president of Jude, it seems as he's aligned or supported the National Democratic Congress. And that is false. I have no affiliation or affinity for any political party or government. I stand firm for our teachers and the workers of Grenada, Carriacou, Martinique, and that track record is proven. It's just that we just start to engage in salary negotiations. And if that was the case, if I really and truly wanted to really give in to this new administration, when they said probably we should accept because police accept, I would have gone and signed for the 4% increase, salary increases for 2023 for teachers. As a national executive, we decided that we're not going to do that, and I was not going to do that. And I would never sign an agreement with the government of Grenada, our negotiating team, without first going back to my members and to make sure, because it's the teachers' power, the teachers who really and truly say whether or not they accept it or not. So what you're seeing and what you're seeing on the papers there with George Worm is just foolishness and false allegations, and some of those things are coming from inside, right inside your own house, and it is really sad, and those things. So to put on record, the Grenada Union of Teachers submitted their proposal, as the government negotiating team asked for the 2023, 2024, and 2025. And to say publicly, it was 9% for the 3 years, 9 2023, 9 2024, 9% 2025. We know that in any negotiations, you start high to come down reasonably, and that is where we are. The government because they asked to submit in writing, the government submits a counter proposal in writing. That's what we saw, and it was released by other unions in the public. 4% for 2023, 2% for 2024, and 2% for 2025. Now, let me make it clear. The government started at 4% for 2023 because police signed. That's the foundation of which 2023 had to start. The 2% for 2024 and 2% for 2025 by the government. We know that the government is not serious about saying that public officers and teachers will get 2% for 2024 and 2% for 25. These are the foundational starting points, or the basis for the negotiations. In the previous administration with Dr. Kit Mitchell and the government negotiating team, NNP, they used to start at 0.5%. So this new administration started at higher. 2% and 2%. So when persons not aware on such a things, the first thing you see outside is that the new administration very wicked, because they look at what they want to give teachers and public officers, and that is not correct. It's just that that's the starting point. In the negotiation now, we're in the progress of negotiating. Negotiation just started, and so we have not completed as yet. And the government make movements so far for 2024 and 2025. Now, I will not tell you what it is, but I just want to put on record here that the government make movement. Now, suppose now I would have just gone and signed for 2024, and just sign for 2% 2025 and sign for 2025. We would not have gotten anything else. And so patience here is a virtue. And I think the teachers know the president that they have of the Grenada Union of Teachers. They know I'm truthful, honest, and committed to them. And they know I will never deviate. I've never gone to government for anything for myself, neither under the table. I've always do it right and straight with our teachers. And they have confidence in me and the Grenada Union of Teachers that we're going to do the best. And patience is a virtue when you're negotiating. And what we said to the government of Grenada, if you look at the inflation rate, is 5.5%. So if you're giving us under that, you're already putting us under poverty, the poverty line, when you're talking about transformation. If you're transforming the nation, you have to transform the salaries of the teachers and public officers and everybody else too. So you look at it. The next argument that we will say, in spite of persons might say whatever problems with the previous administration, whether you hate or you dislike Dr. Kit Mitchell and the NNP, they did in the midst of COVID, they gave us 12% salary increases, 4% 2020, 4% 2021, and 4% 2022. Now we expect, you can expect if the previous administration gave us 12%, that a new government who is coming in and talking about transformation and trying about taking out people from poverty with the high cost of living and economic situation to come and give us under 12%. So if the government, we would not accept that. And so that's where we are. And we say we're just in the process of negotiating. So if police go ahead and they sign and you hear that they get their monies in they're getting it in January. Or prison officers got it in January. It's because they signed long before under the previous administration and we didn't know about that. We never signed anything. And so we're just in the process of negotiation. Now, you would not lose, the teachers would not lose any monies as public officers. Even if the negotiation process takes 6 months, retroactive payments will come to every teacher and public officer from starting January when they should have had their salary increases. So sometimes we have to be careful what we hear and the things we say, and sometimes the malicious intent. And I would never undersell the duty of any public officer or anybody else in Grenada. Persons I have proven myself in spite of this the situation. Pension, the record is there. I stood the test at the hardest time in action negotiations for the Grenada Union of Teachers, public officers, stood the test of time. I was detained and never bothered submitted or surrender to the NNB administration or any administration. I fight hard and we fight hard as the Grenada Union of Teachers. Today, in spite of that, everybody reaped the benefit of the pension. The dark salary was the same. We march and we got it. TAMCC for 10 years, they didn't get anything. I did what I have to do as the president of Grenada, of the Grenada Union of Teachers, together with the executive and teachers, to really and truly to stand firm for the payments of TAMCC. We hear that the government have already paid the whole $10 million to TAMCC, which is amazing. We never hated the NNP administration, you know. We were fighting for our principle and our cause. And if the NNP administration would have just paid the dark salary and paid the pension and the commitment to do it and all those things, probably they would have been in office today. So one would put on the record, look at the NDC administration. Persons are saying, well, why are you not coming out and protest and talk about the NDC administration? So facts must be facts. Tell us what we're really protesting about right at this time. What is the cause for it? No, that doesn't mean to say there are grievances that have been settled. The government came in under Deacon Mitchell, Honorable Deacon Mitchell, and I just want to say something here. Think about it. When Deacon Mitchell was running for political office, everybody was chastising him, even the media. This small and thin man, this ordinary man, who is this man showing a picture from St. David's as if he's nowhere, is the same simple and ordinary man that passed the pension and run it now, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, is the same simple and ordinary leader, the Prime Minister of Grenada, that paid the dark salary now. Is the same simple and ordinary man that honor the commitment for TAMCC. Is the same simple and ordinary man who is going to regularize and upgrade teachers, and that's what we look forward and we look at. That is our grievance here we're going to talk about. And it's the same thing with me. I was hurt and the pain that came through when I saw what was going on. I didn't say anything for the treatment with Honorable Deacon Mitchell because I understand it, because I went through that similar situation. Persons, when people think that when you're ordinary and you're simple, and they think, well, really and truly you have no relevance, and that's the thing that we have to change for our 50th anniversary of Grenada's independence. We think the high and the mighty, we appreciate people when they come from high and mighty. And we think the highly educated and the high and mighty, they are the ones that they will do the great things. But God, He doesn't see things as people see things. God sees things in different ways. And He chose people sometimes of ordinary people who have the love, the commitment, and the dedication to do great things. Simple people can do great things if you give them a chance. Not always the high and the mighty.
Mr. Bartholomew, I'm gonna have to actually take a break here for a minute. We drew for a break. Let's take it. I know that you have so much that you want to get off this morning, but let's take a break and we're coming right back. And there's a final 15 minutes left on today's program. We're coming right back. The viewers and listeners out there, we also will be entertaining some of your phone calls during this segment. We're coming right back. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point for Today, Friday.
You know, one day I woke up and, you know, they painted a set of pedestrian crossing all along the streets. You know, nobody told us how to use that thing properly.
I know how.
You're serious?
Every safe, good driver knows about these things. As a driver, you have to be very attentive. You know you're coming up close to a pedestrian cross, you start slowing down immediately, looking to see if there's any pedestrian on the side getting ready to cross. If there is, you stop on the line that is a certain distance before the crosswalk. Then you would see the pedestrian put their hands out, looking directly at you, indicating that they are going to cross. And only when you have come to a complete stop, that is when they will quickly and safely cross to the other side. And then you continue happily on your journey.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact, wait for pedestrian to cross. Then you happily continue on your journey.
This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, once again to The Point for Today, Friday. Let's go back to Mr. Bartholomew. He's the president of the GUT, and he's with us this morning. Mr. Bartholomew, you briefly you spoke just briefly about regularization and upgrades in your previous statement that you were making. I want you to briefly give us an update on how that process is going, because we do to take some calls. The phone lines will be going off the hook for a wee bit. I would like to entertain a couple of those callers.
Yes, and I have a few topics that I will touch on briefly, but quickly. Regularization is the sticking point with the NDC administration. And I could tell you how hot that teachers are. And they expressing it on Facebook, they're expressing it all over the place, their disappointment and everything. In spite of all the praise for the administration, we know that every government will not be able to do everything at the same time. But in my first program, when the new administration, I did say the real good thing that the NDC administration could really do for young people and teachers who are temporary nurses and doctors and everybody else is to regularize. And once they do that, I think that's one of the greatest achievements. That's where we are struggling. We had 106 teachers to be regularized. We heard that the government said that they want to regularize across the entire public service. And we think that the teachers are frustrated because there are teachers who temporary for a lot of years. 16 years, 15 years, 10 years, and we're not getting anywhere with that at the time being, and that is frustrating. I could tell you that teachers are mad, they are vexed, and they are hot, and they are complaining. And I think the wisest thing for the government, the Ministry of Education, is to listen and to hear the cry of the teachers, the nurses, and other persons who have been temporary for a long time. Yesterday, I got a report about somebody who's working with the blind, or who worked for all the years and temporary, and this month, February, is the last month, and they're going home. and persons have to be trying to make a plea for the Ministry of Education, DPA, to see if they can give pension to that person. Those things shouldn't happen. And what I'm trying to say, when we're celebrating our 49th year of independence, we're going to the 50th, and we're talking about compensation from our colonial masters for the wrongs that they have done. There are a lot of wrongs that governments have done to its citizens and to the workers of this country, and regularization temporary for all this time, denying the teachers and public officers of really going forward with their life is a level of injustice, and reparation must take place more than 2 increments. You can't just give teachers and public officers 2 increments for 10, 15, 20 years that they were temporary. You have to compensate them adequately, and that's what we're looking for. It's a vexatious matter, and we're not happy about it, and I think that is where we're going to have some confrontation or whatever it is with the government of Grenada, the NDC administration, because we think that the teachers, they are frustrated and they complain for a long time and they need to be regularized, and we're asking the Ministry of Education, the government, to do something about it. Also upgrades. They did upgrade for the Christmas, the teachers, batch of teachers, 2021 batch, and we thank them for that. They did also upgrade, I think, a few persons with bachelors and masters, but what they're saying, the Ministry of Education doesn't really have a policy, the government doesn't really have a standardized policy to do those things. They talk about really the priority areas, and there are lots of teachers who did their masters and bachelors, and they're in the priority areas that the government or the Ministry of Education said, and all the teachers' documents just sit down there from past administration to now, sit down in the Ministry of Education, and they're not processing it and sending it through for the teachers to be upgraded. This is a level of slavery in the 49th year of our independence, and we're asking the government of Grenada, the Ministry of Education, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell and Honorable David Andrew, to do something about it, and to do something about quickly, because people are already getting fed up, not only teachers but other public officers.
All right, great. We do have, of course, some callers who are calling in. Let's entertain them and we come back with some more. Let's say good morning to this first caller. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, GT. Oh, my God. GT, I want to say to your guest, it is those kind of things that he's saying concerning salaries and so, that we're going to have, they want to run the country bankrupt. Because he's talking about 9% increase on salaries. Where would the government get this money? But it's not by raising taxes. So to satisfy a group of people, the whole country have to submit themselves to higher taxes, because that's what the government used to pay. And if they want more than what the government collecting, what are they trying to do? I think it's greed in the heart of people. We to that time, this is the last days we're living in. We need to concentrate on God more than anything else. The devil is a thief and a murderer. The devil is a liar. And the devil is using people like these to cause countries to be in problems.
All right, caller, I want to thank you for your contribution. We want to accommodate as much callers as possible. Let's take another caller. 435-2041. I'm not sure if you want to comment on what the caller said, Mr. Bartholomew, or we
Yes, I would like to comment, because what the callers not listening to is that we said that is our submission to the government of Grenada, 9%. And I did put on record that you start high and you never expect to get 9% salary increase or 9 for 3 years, 27%. In negotiations, the government will start low and they will come up. You will start high and you expect to go down, and you'll reach at a state of equilibrium. So that's what we're saying here. So I think I respect what the caller says, and when persons call and they express themselves, you have to respect what they're saying. Of humility, you have to respect it. But what the caller is really saying there is not correct.
Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning, welcome. And be brief, please, caller.
GT, and morning, Mr. Bartholomew. Mr. Bartholomew said a number of things which very interested. And this program doesn't really allow us to deal with it, because there are different angles you can take for it. He talks about the dilemma the union face based on the politics, when you're on one side, this happens. But even the union, the teachers' union, have played a big role in us arriving at the state that we are in Grenada. Beginning from forcing the late Howard Blaze to sell assets. Also, the breakup, the joint negotiating team that used to negotiate with the government, when pressure was being brought to bear on Tau, the union broke away. And then I wouldn't go long because there are many other issues I could talk in terms of where they have also contributed to the condition in Grenada, including the signing of the memorandum of understanding. But I have personal experience, and just bear me to say that. I was hired or contracted, maybe not hired, might say contracted by the Grenada Union of Teachers to do a series of conflict resolution entitled Making Safe Schools Safe. Around 2000, myself and another person from St. George's University. On the night before, in fact, around that same time, Teachers Union was negotiating with the government for salary increase and so on. On the night before I was supposed to go to the first school, I think it was in St. John's, I got a call from the then General Secretary telling me that I cannot continue because the government does not want me to be in the schools. I'm saying so that the union have played a role. I mean, I wouldn't go further, but I'm saying that we all are complicit one way or the other. So we created a monster, now it's haunting us now.
Thank you, Gola. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. 435-2041. I'm not sure if you want to have a response for that from the caller, Mr. Bartholomew, or we move on to another caller.
I respect the caller's opinion, and I expect sincere apologies that the callers, that caller wasn't able to go in the school. We understand. I think that one of the administration did put a rule that anybody really and truly couldn't visit schools. Not even the opposition leader, I think, at the time could have been able to visit schools. So we understand that when certain things happen, we have to take the blame. But however, when they talk about salary increases, and that is the mentality of our people, when you look at the wastage of resources in Grenada by even politicians and governments in power, they don't talk about that. There are a lot of wastage. The only time you hear about problems with our people, and our people fall victim to that. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when we support things on our mind, we have to open up our minds. Because what is happening is that every time there is salary negotiations and there is pensions, there is thing, all you hear about is that the workers creating problems for the states. But the salary, we are reasonably, remember, all other things taking place is only for the workers. And let's just put on record. If you check the OECS, you're talking about OECS harmonization and the history. The workers of Grenada, including teachers, are the lowest paid. You go and check it out for yourself. It's the lowest paid. And the sacrifices and the commitment that teachers make and the public service towards Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. For pensionable purposes, the government know that is a constitutional matter and is a weakness and a failure upon government that they did not have the adequate and necessary investment put in place to deal with pension. Is the foresight and the insight of our governments and our people, because that is a constitutional matter and they know they have to pay it anyway. And so they have to pay the increases in salary. And that's what we said. Is not everybody may take some blame here, but it's not always one person.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. All right, and you?
I'm doing fine. Be brief, please.
I just want to say a little. Concerning the president, yes, he mentioned concerning the lower and the higher. But many a times, I accept what he said and I understand and it is real. Many a time they think about those who are high, but the lower ones don't gain any benefit. And so the teachers, when the benefits come, the lower ones didn't gain anything. You all need to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you also, caller, for your contribution this morning. We just have a few more minutes left, Mr. Bartholomew. We may be able to entertain one more call. I'm not sure if you want to chime in on the callers' statements that they made before we take it.
There are two last quick things I want to raise. So.
Yeah, sure. Let's take another caller and then let's take our final caller and then we take some wrap up for you. Good morning to you, caller. Caller, good morning. Guess that caller is not there. So let's forego the calls for now.
Yes.
You did say that you want to touch on two other matters that, of course,
I would like to touch on NS and NS, the importance of persons checking the NS payments. And it's not necessary for teachers, that's for the general public, because the union really, all the times just for its members, for the general public, and that's where I come in here. A lot of concerns have been raised, even from the NS, because you hear they're not collecting sufficient revenues and resources and everything. And so we're asking the government of Grenada, the NS, the scheme. What is happening is that persons are calling all the time and they are complaining, especially if they're working in private entities. You have construction workers, you have domestic workers, and these sort of persons. When they work, whether fortnightly or monthly on a monthly basis, a lot of the times the monies for NS are deducted from them. If they get paid over the counter, And what happens is that these people, they don't pay any attention or go to the NS to see if these monies that were deducted from them or paid. And they take it for granted that whoever deduct the money from cash, you might get your pay over the counter, cash, and you see $100 has been deducted for NS payments. And what is happening, a lot of complaints that some of the persons in charge did never pay the NS for these people. And until they reach age 60 now, they end up in a problem. When they're thinking they might be getting an old age benefit or NIS pension, they end up with a little grant and they're disappointed and they're hurt. And a lot of persons are complaining about that. So, and that is theft in itself. So what we're asking the government of Grenada the laws are in place, NIS laws, and we're asking the Grenadian citizenry, if you're working whether private, whether public, check on your NIS. It doesn't have to go down in St. George's or St. Andrews, wherever you pass, and to pass in to find out if the persons who's supposed to pay your NIS, if they're paying it for you. And that is what I would want to say. Very quickly also, I would want to talk about something that concerns our citizenry in Grenada also. A lot of persons have been complaining about the passports and linked with visa purposes. It is not the Grenadian citizenry that is responsible for the government of Canada really and truly putting visa restrictions on our persons and our citizens. The governments of Grenada through the citizens investment program. And what persons are complaining about now is the length of the passport, the years. You have a passport where you're 5 years. And what we're saying to the government and immigration to take into consideration that probably for the citizens by investment where you have foreigners coming and you're selling the passport to them, that could be 5 years, a turnaround quick where you make your monies. But for the Grenadian citizenry, think about or contemplate now, probably giving persons a 10-year passport. Because when the persons, they go to a passport now or a visa for Canada, it's very expensive. You have to do your biometrics. You have to pay to send it up with DHL or other persons. And if you have 1 year, a lot of persons are complaining that whatever the years that they have for a Canadian visa, they would get 1 year and 6 months. If it's 6 months, they give them a 6-month visa. 1 year, they give them a 1 year visa. And for the amount of money that you're spending for that, it doesn't make sense. And if you also the concern with the United States Embassy and the visa and how they do it. And government that have to remedy these things. A lot of the times we take into consideration that government must fix local things for us, pay us and do those things. But it's the responsibility of government throughout the regions, and that is the weakness. That how they negotiate with other foreign entities and foreign bodies has been lacking. Now take for example the United States Embassy in Barbados. They have their situation where you have to pay, you have to go to Barbados, so you buy a ticket. Tickets now is not cheap. You go to Barbados, when you go to Barbados, they might deny you of the visa, you don't get it. So there's a lot of waste money coming in. You go for the visa, even if you get it, you have to come back to Grenada. When you come back to Grenada, you have to pay an exorbitant cost to send up the passport back with DHL and all those things. So what could happen is that there could be an online vetting situation where governments of Grenada negotiate and in the region. You send your documents to the US Embassy, they check it out and such before you book a flight and everything. If you're going to get it, they give you the right away, you book a flight and you go. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go. But those are for the amount of young people and other persons who are already and truly working and have to pay all that money to go to Barbados and then to get a disappointment that they're not getting the visa and come back here is really a cost factor that the people of Barbados don't really have to take care of. They just go in the embassy, they don't get it, they don't get it. So what we're asking is that the government of Grenada to take into consideration and to look into these things and see how you could start to negotiate and strike a deal with probably the Canadian government, the United States government, to see how you could alleviate that pressures and that our citizens are undergoing. And that's what I would say here.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bartholomew, of course, and certainly take a bit of concern about you, the concern that you have expressed. I certainly hope the authorities may look into it. I want to thank you so much for being on the program this morning. A pleasure to have you as always, and for coming and share the concern and share the information that you did this morning. And there's certainly fruitful information and necessary, of course. It was necessary for you to throw this information out this morning, and it's highly appreciated. Thanks for being on the point. Hope we could have you again in the near future to come back and express more concern and share information with us as a whole. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
All right. Hey, folks, that's how we wrap up To The Point for today here on K105 and also on GBN TV. Join us again next week. Today will be our final edition of To The Point for this particular week. Join us again next week for another edition. That's why I say goodbye. Have yourself a great weekend. All the best, folks.